Hi, well, thank you, Isabel. My name's Richard from Powdertech, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about powder coating and lightweighting of facades and giving you a few examples of where that can be applied. So Powdertech have been powder coating rain screen, facade and associated products such as solar shading, bisley, sills and cappings and general press metal for nearly 40 years. And having started as a traditional powder applicator, we've expanded into the creation of unique and bespoke polyester powder finishes, which we started doing back in the late 1990s with the development of Powdertech wood finish, which has been used extensively actually around the world. And in the 20 years in between, we've been developing further products which really are capitalizing on the adaptability of powder coating, initially to the visual appearance of traditional materials, but more recently to the issues associated with the performance of facades and the advantages in performance over traditional materials. Well, looking back over the last 20, 25 years, I think we probably were a little bit ahead of our time. But with the growing interest in renewables, recycling of buildings, carbon footprint, lightweighting, fire performance, thermal performance, and even off-site manufacture, I think the time has come for the serious consideration of powder coat finishes in contributing to the future of facades, and specifically about the lighter weighting of that area of the built environment in conjunction with aluminium. So we're going to try and touch on four areas of the subject. The first one is what I call the lightweighting of the visible facade. It's the bit you see. And lightweighting and maybe the speed of installation or the logistics around what's behind the facade. We'll touch on recycling and then finish with a few examples of how you can replace traditional materials with modern powders. So I think we want to say really that a well-specified facade can bring just so much more to you than regulatory safety. You can use lots of imagination. You can still be unique. Your building can still be unique. It can be a beautiful building. It can have great form and function, and it will really set the tone for any building and maybe even what the occupiers of the building would like to reflect to the people approaching it. So I think we can confidently say now that traditional heavyweight building materials can be replaced with lightweight, flexible, adaptable and reusable spaces suitable for the modern environment. So let's have a quick look into the first of those four. Here is the first example. It's White City shopping centre in West London, and it's the sawtooth facade that you can see in the foreground. Interestingly, in the background, you'll see a rotunda tower, which is a stone building. And the facade was extended away from that stone building and completed in aluminium because the stone was too heavy, the stone was too expensive, and also the lead times are extremely long. So this was a relatively early example of substitution in a very successful sort of way, and we've revisited a couple of times since. Looking at a couple of the stats here. Panel, roughly 5.5 metres by 1.7 metres, each weighed approximately 70 kilograms. Had you tried to make that in the equivalent GRC, you'd be looking at the thick end of 300 kilograms or 35 kilos per square metre. Quite a difference that would be in the performance of the building. We have had other areas of using wood or powder-coated aluminium in a wood finish versus wood. It's not such a dramatic weight-saving effect, but of course, remembering that wood changes weight, it expands, it contracts, takes a lot to maintain. and is therefore quite an unpredictable facade material. And of course, post-Grenfell wood effect on aluminium can very well replace traditional wood and bring the building back into regulation. And finally, in this little area, when we're looking at terracotta finishes, which I know are becoming increasingly more interesting and specified, terracotta has the same issues as stone in the weight, but with the additional issues of the cost of manufacture and the cost of electricity, etc., when turning earth, as it were, into a terracotta, maybe a glazed terracotta finish. And also with that type of material, stone included, there's potentially quite a low product yield with breakages, etc. So let's dive beneath the visible surface and have a look at the lightweighting of the support structure. Now, I'm not a structural engineer, but I will ask the rhetorical question: how much additional support does it require to install a heavy facade versus an aluminium facade? And how much easier would an aluminium facade be to install? How much more uniform would it be? And how much quicker would it be? I can't directly answer those questions, but I think it would be fairly obvious that the substructure to hang a stone facade would be a lot heavier than that to hang an aluminium facade. And also the aluminium can be bespoke to modern air needs for ventilation, insulation, etc. So I wanted also to touch on the lightweighting of the logistics of the construction industry, maybe a light footprint, if you like, or maybe a light tyre track. Question: how many stone facades fit on a vehicle versus aluminium facades? How far would you think in miles per kilogram does stone compare to aluminium, or heavy materials compared to aluminium? I think we'll find that you can fit a lot more on a single lorry of aluminium than you can a single lorry of heavier material. And an extension to the, away from the facade is also the increasing use of balconies to extend flats. And they're now a lot turning towards aluminium to counteract the natural weight hanging off the side of a building. And aluminium is becoming very much more specified in infill bars and top rails, etc., for not only weight but also aesthetic reasons, so you can get away from heavy steel. So my other question is, can we flat pack a facade? Maybe a challenge to the architects here. So we increase the parts per journey and reduce site losses and in the installation damage. We couldn't touch on the construction industry without touching on recyclability. And I think it's quite fair to say that recycling is important now, and that the industry has been following the motor industry for a while in trying to increase recycling. In the automotive industry, it's around about 95%, which has been reused. And in the 2020 figures for the construction industry, I think it was 92.6%. And that's pretty excellent. But what if we actually used less in the first place? And as we're talking about aluminium, it's interesting to note that the aluminium is very, very recyclable and can be 100% recyclable without any loss of the original properties of strength that it first had. And maybe if more aluminium was used not only in the facade itself but in the substructure, then that would reduce the variety of materials that are being used within a facade and therefore increase the recyclability, because there'll be less contamination of different materials within a building. So there's perhaps another reason for moving to a lightweight material and extending that into the fixings, because it will increase the recyclability of the building. So here's a few examples from projects that Powdertech have completed. It's where we have essentially substituted materials, heavyweight materials, for some of the modern polyester powders which we have developed over the years. And we like to think that it will save you time and money without sacrificing your well-earned design intent, the design freedom and innovation and the uniqueness which architects bring to this industry, but also increasing the efficiency and the usability and the recyclability of the building. So the top two images are Bournemouth University, which is actually a reclad that we completed in 2023. So the colour palette was essentially already established, which was dark bronzes and cortens on the right, and wood infill panels or wood curtain wall detail on the left-hand side. So we were able to use aluminium panels, which was using our colour called peat fire, which, as you can see, gives visual interest. And on the left-hand side are the wood effect. They're not really spandrels, but you can see what I mean, the wood effect there for the whole of the building. That brought it back into A2 S1 D0 compliance in a relatively marine environment with a 25-year guarantee on the finish. On the bottom right is a project in Belfast called the Paper Exchange. This was a mixed-use rebuild. New build, I should say, mixed-use rebuild, using a product called Scorched Earth, which not only went across the facade panels, but also the cappings and the extruded aluminium sill details as well. And on the left-hand side is a relatively early project that we completed at Avery Boulevard in Milton Keynes. This was a replacement of stone with aluminium, powder-coated in a stone effect, which both lightweighted the building and was very consistent in its colour throughout. And interestingly, that stone effect was not only colourful or the right colour, but it was also had a texture to it, which gave it a real feel of the real stone. Here we have two projects at the top by the same company called Maple. Some people may know them as Maple Sunscreening. A recent project on the left, which was Stafford College. This was up to about 5 metre lengths of extruded aluminium box section screening fin, which was installed extremely quickly and looks absolutely fantastic. And of course, great structural integrity over such a large span is something which aluminium can give over wood, and also, of course, a lot easier to clean and maintain. On the right-hand side is Broadmarsh Shopping Centre car park in Nottingham. This was a bespoke made terracotta, textured red or orangey red colour, and again gave the designer structural integrity and a great flexibility to move around that car park and giving a nice curves of the screening. And we still continue to develop innovative products. Below is Powderlux, which is, there's 4 images on the left, which are coppers and burnished brass, and on the left a sort of brown, leathery, bronzy colour, and to the right is a blued or oiled steel, which we call urban steel. And onto the right-hand side is the latest innovation, which is a glazed terracotta. This particular one is green, which are all there to replace much heavier traditional materials without loss of integrity. So finally, to conclude, you can see my contact details there, which you are free to contact me at any time. But today, of course, there are many competing materials, and in themselves, they're as radical and as original as the materials that they are replacing in our modern world. And with competition for resources and time, I think there's a growing argument to look at the construction in a wider field of view, lightweighting the whole of the construction journey from origination to installation and all the transport, etc. in between. And modern powder coat finishes I feel, have reached a stage and a maturity where they can impact the journey without compromising the excitement of the destination. And thank you very much indeed.